Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema Safari. Today's episode, Tron Ares. Tron Ares is the latest installment in the Tron franchise, starring Jared Leto as the title character. It was directed by Joachim Ronning and written by Jesse Wigato. Hopefully I pronounced those correctly. Um, so we're going to be talking about Tron Ares, how it is expanding the franchise, and we're also going to talk about the first two films, and the impacts they've had on the industry and just the world in general, and how the franchise has expanded over the years as well into other media. So the original Tron, the franchise started in 1982. It was created, directed, written by Steven Lisberger. So we're going to be talking about all that. We're going to be talking about just how it's impacted industry, all that, our thoughts on the whole franchise as well. And I just want to clear out for those of you who aren't too familiar with the franchise, Tron is the title character in the first film, and he also appears in the second film. Some people think that Tron is the world that was created in the film. The world is called the Grid. There are different depictions of the Grid in each film that do have different names. But Tron is actually a character, not the name of the world. So I just wanted to clear that up for those who aren't too familiar with it. So stick around as we get into Tron. So the Tron franchise started in 1982 with the first film written and directed by Steven Lisberger. 2010 we get the first sequel, Tron Legacy, and then this year we get Tron Ares. Now, the original Tron, I guess all the Tron movies, the main character, kind of like the face of the franchise for anyone who knows anything about Tron, Jeff Bridges, he plays Kevin Flynn, which is the main character in the first film, and then he also appears in the latter two films as well. Bruce Boxleitner is also plays a central role, especially in the first film. He also does appear in the second film. He plays Jeff Bridges, Kevin Flynn's kind of business partner type character, Alan Bradley, and he also plays Tron in the first film, and then Ritzer in the second film, who is kind of like an evil version of Tron for those who are familiar with the story. So the concept of Tron is big thing, like a virtual reality type thing. So Kevin Flynn in the first film, he is a video game developer, and he started a company called Encom. And he, after some business conflicts with a rival company, he kind of isn't part of the company for the first film, but then by the end of the film, he resumes his duties as CEO of Encom. The main antagonist of the franchise is the Dillinger Corporation. So in the first film, we see Grandpa Dillinger, and then in Legacy, we kind of have a cameo played by Cillian Murphy, who plays the son of Edward Dillinger. And then in the third film, we see Julian Dillinger, who is the grandson of the original Dillinger from the first film. In the third film, played by Evan Peters. So the main antagonization between Dillinger and Flynn, Dillinger wants to develop their own virtual reality, basically, and so there's a lot of competition between the two to create that perfect virtual reality world. So a big part of the Tron franchise is, of course, the Grid, which is the fictional virtual reality that I guess not fictional because it is a real place that they do create, but it's the virtual reality world that um, Kevin Flynn ends up creating. So each film kind of depicts a different version of the grid. In the first film, it's called the MCOM grid, which is the operating system of the MCOM company in the first film, and kind of how they're starting to create this virtual reality world. So it's the classic version that we see in the first film. In Legacy, the grid is known as the Flynn grid, named after Kevin Flynn. And this grid is more of the actual world that the programs are living in now. It's very more complex. It exists and functions like a regular society, basically, for the programs. So it features darker atmosphere and self-generating programs, and it's kind of like this world that he envisioned sort of now existing in the second film. The third film, the grid is known as the Dillinger grid. It was created by Dillinger Systems, Julian Dillinger, and it's not as explored in Ares. A lot of the film, for those who have seen it, does take place with programs coming into the real world. So we don't spend as much time in the grid in the third film, so not too much is known about the extent of the Dillinger grid in the film. All we really know is that the grid was created by Dillinger for that film. So, in the first film, Kevin Flynn they're working on starting to create this system, this virtual reality. The second film, Kevin Flynn has disappeared, so it centers around his son Sam Flynn, who is played by Guy Headland. They get a message supposedly from the father, but it turns out it's from Clue, who is an evil version program of Kevin Flynn that he created years ago to help build this virtual world. So Sam goes into the grid and ends up connecting with his father and Cora, played by Olivia Wilde, and they work on trying to bring Kevin Flynn back into the real world. And by the end of the film, he ends up sacrificing himself, and so Sam and Cora can escape back into the real world, and Clue isn't able to escape with them and go into the real world. Ares is basically a soft reboot, so to speak, of the franchise. It is supposedly set 15 years after Legacy. It doesn't really have too many connections directly to Legacy. Jeff Bridges does appear in the film in a very small role, which to watch was kind of awkward to see him back in a way. In the way they brought him back, it didn't feel right to me. But I don't know. So Sam Flynn is mentioned in the film. At the end of Legacy, Sam Flynn did take over as the head of MCOM after all the events that happened in the grid with his dad and everything. When he came back into the real world at the end of Legacy, he appointed Alan Bradley as the head of the board for MCOM, and he did take over as CEO. In Ares, It is mentioned by one of the characters that Sam Flynn did step down as CEO at some point within that time frame, and due to personal reasons, and he hasn't seen it all in the film. He has mentioned only that one, so we have no idea like where he is now, what happened with that, or not much is even said about why he left or anything. So there aren't really too many connections with Legacy. It is considered a sequel to Legacy, but it doesn't really have too many connections or really talk about too much about what happened in that film or anything. In Ares, the title character, Ares, played by Jared Leto, created by Dillinger Systems, specifically Julian Dillinger, as a program, kind of like the perfect program. So he is created and takes over duties for the grid as the master controller, who in the first two films, TRON who was the title character, who of course is the program version of Alan Bradley. Is the master controller, who is like the protector, main security force in the grid to make sure, kind of to keep the peace, kind of like police in a way. So Ares is created to be this new master controller, but he is brought over into the real world to complete certain missions, and in the film, without hopefully spoiling too much for those who haven't seen it, Dillinger brings him in to get a special like software from the head of NCOM, the current head of NCOM in Ares, so that they can create more things, develop a better software type thing. Now, Ares, when I watched it, I had mixed feelings about it, which I think a lot of people did. For me personally, and a lot of the reviews I saw after I watched it, the story felt very Terminator-like. For those who have seen Terminator, it felt like it was just Terminator. I was watching basically Terminator with light cycles. It wasn't bad story-wise. It felt too familiar, and I just kind of knew everything that was like I expected what was going to happen. Like it didn't feel like new or over exciting, at least story wise. Like the visuals were amazing. The score was great. Like they marketed the score as like the best score ever, and I don't know if it was the best score ever, but like it was a fun score. It definitely had me moving around. So score and visuals definitely the best two parts of the film. The story, I didn't like. For some people, they're like, yeah, it was just a terrible story. I don't think it was terrible. It just wasn't anything new. It was too familiar, so it didn't. It did negatively impact the movie, I think, for me at least, because didn't offer anything fresh, anything new. It wasn't bad. It didn't offer anything new or exciting. So it did hinder the overall experience because of the fact that it was too familiar. The characters also weren't great. And I don't know if it was because of writing, because of like the choices they made, direction maybe. I don't know. They just didn't feel like easy to connect with or anything like too complex, which also kind of But part of that might have been like connection to like the story, having a familiar story and characters within that story that felt really familiar. So maybe that was part of it too. I'm not sure, but that it just didn't feel. They didn't feel like super easy to like watch or connect with. So there was that. But overall, like I definitely enjoyed it. I think that it was good. Like I enjoyed it. I liked it. So I would recommend watching it, and especially for the visuals. Like to watch on the big screen, it definitely looked great. So I think that it will. It definitely is worth the watch, I believe. But like story wise, it wasn't bad, like I said, but it didn't really offer anything new to the franchise. I know that after Legacy originally came out, they were the concept of bringing them over into the real world. Uh, they did have a sequel to Legacy that they were planning to do with Garrett Hedlund, Olivia Wilde in the real world, and assuming bringing Jeff Bridges back for that one as well, in some capacity. Um, that didn't end up getting made at the time because one of the reasons that Garrett Hedlund said in an interview was because Tomorrowland with George Clooney that was released in I think like 2014, 2015, and that didn't have a great box office performance. So at the time, Disney didn't move forward with the Tron sequel because Tomorrowland, and at least according to some of the actors, that was the main reason why it didn't move forward at the time. Um, but it did have a similar concept, and I feel like it would have been maybe more enjoyable, at least for me, to see those characters in the real world after their experience, after seeing them in Legacy. Because for me, at least story wise, and I guess visually too, but definitely story wise, I did like the story in Legacy more because like none of the films have like an overly complex story. But Legacy, because a major part of that story is Sam trying to reconnect with his father once he does find him, and a lot of that story, it felt more like a story to watch, if that makes sense. Um, so I kind of story wise I did prefer Legacy, and visually I mean Legacy was great. I think a lot of the visuals were great, especially because most of it did take place in the grid. Also, like the thing with Ares, a lot of it does take place in the real world, so we do still get a lot of like there are light cycles. There's just different aspects that are brought over from the current grid that is depicted in Ares. So we do get a lot of great visuals, but in Legacy, it's pretty much all in the grid for the most part. So the whole world, we do get immersed in that, virtual reality throughout the film, which felt more like Tron. Having them come over into the real world, we do have the elements of Tron, but like it didn't really feel as much like like an actual Tron movie because in a lot of ways because we weren't really immersed in the Tron, all like the virtual reality. Um, so there's that as well. So Legacy, I feel like overall I did prefer that over Ares. So if I had to like pick one over the other, I would definitely go with Legacy. So the Tron franchise has also over the years expanded into beyond the films, short films. The light cycle run at Disney World. So it expanded to theme park attractions, novels, short films, television. So there is one short film called Tron the Next Day, which takes place I believe right after, one day after the events of Tron Legacy, and uh, Box, Lettner, and Hedlund do reprise their roles as Alan Bradley and Sam Flynn, respectively, in the short film. So we kind of do get like a mini sequel to Tron Legacy, seeing like what's happening after, I guess immediately after um, Sam does return to the real world with Cora at the end of Tron Legacy. I've never actually seen this short film, so I don't know exactly what happens in it, but it would have been cool like to expand on that short film in like a feature-length sequel. We also have television series, so Tron Uprising was an animated series that premiered on Disney XD in 2012. It only lasted for one season. I think it was kind of an, I don't know if underrated is the right word, but it definitely was a great series. I enjoyed it so much. It was like completely, for the most part, original characters. We do get Tron in as like the mentor figure to Beck, who is voiced by Elijah Wood, who is takes over as the new Tron in the series. And then in the final shot of the finale of season 1, we see Clue coming in, who is the main antagonist of the second film. And so that was cool to see him and see the potential for a second season that unfortunately never happened. But I think it was definitely a series that maybe for the time, like Tron wasn't as big, so like it didn't really get the footing it deserved, or just the reception that it deserved for being like a really good quality season, really good quality show, I think. But so it would have been cool to see how that expanded, because it definitely had the right elements in the first season to become something huge that unfortunately never panned out. There was also a live-action Tron show that was in development for Disney Plus that didn't come to fruition. It got canceled before it even it would, like, I don't know if they developed any scripts for it, but it got canceled pretty early on in the process, so we never got to see that. I don't know if it was due to any like cost related reasons, or like too big of a budget or potential budget for the film or series. So but it would have been cool to see like a live action project as well. So the reception of the Tron franchise, all three films kind of received mixed reviews. None of the films have done like amazing. The first Tron film, it was released in 1982, so it like definitely has that retro feel to it. Visually, it's definitely outdated. Like some films, like Star Wars, like those visuals, like even now, I mean, the feel of the visuals, they very realistic. They used a lot of like models and stuff. Obviously, there wasn't really CGI at that point. But it still holds up. Tron, the original film, I mean, it's fun to watch for nostalgia purposes, but the film doesn't really hold up to today. Tron Ares at the box office, it is, I believe, Jared Leto's lowest performing box office. I don't know if that's just for the opening weekend and for like just in total how much it's grossed so far, but it's definitely underperforming, which is pretty sad. So there's a rumor that Disney is scrapping their plans for the franchise because of the low performance of Tron Ares at the box office. Hopefully that's not the case, because I mean they do have the newer attraction in Disney World, which might not have anything to do with the franchise. So even if they like scrap the franchise, they could still have that. But I do like Tron. I love the concept of it. So hopefully, um, whether it's in film format or they end up doing like another show at some point, um, hopefully they are still planning to do something with the franchise. I would be pretty sad if they did completely cancel the franchise because I do like the concept. I have fun with the films. Are they the best like made films in the world? Not really. But they're story wise, they're all pretty simple, straightforward. Um, but they're fun films. I enjoy them. I like the concept. So I hopefully they do continue the franchise. They aren't scrapping it. Maybe they'll just take a break, um, really sit down, see what the future holds. Kind of like they did with Star Wars after the Rise of Skywalker, kind of underperforming at the box office. Um, Although I guess it still made over $1 billion, so like uh, against the budget, it didn't really underperform. But. Um, So, like, maybe they just have to sit down, see where to go from here, kind of rework some ideas they had with continuing the franchise. Hopefully, they're not done with the franchise. Hopefully, they do something down the road. Hopefully, it doesn't take another 15 years. But, I would still love to see something down the line. Whether it's a sequel to Ares or, like, another reboot or even just reinventing the franchise in any way. So Tron has also had a impact on the movie industry, especially the first one, because it was one of the first movies to use CGI. It creating a digital world known as the cyberspace. It was a groundbreaking achievement at the time. This innovation set a new standard for visual effects. It influenced the entertainment industry's approach to computer-generated imagery for films. So, the visuals for Tron, while the first film today is definitely outdated, it did have a big impact of the use of computer graphics at the time and how they could be used in film. So it definitely had a big impact on that. Another impact is the predictive future that the film's concept of digital identity, artificial intelligence, definitely foreshadowed concepts that are still relevant today, such as like the metaverse, digital personas. So this foresight in storytelling technology has inspired filmmakers today to continue to use this topic and discussion in films that are currently being made. So the idea of artificial intelligence, AI, is definitely, especially in current times, a big topic that people are talking about both in films and in real life. So that idea is definitely very relevant today. The original Tron film's legacy is definitely significant, even though the film isn't like widely talked about, especially by the younger generation. It was a pioneer in CGI for character animation and world building. The success of Tron, it's inspired a lot of films and shows, leading to a broader acceptance of CGI in the entertainment industry, both in film and shows, and how it's used. So it definitely was a pioneer in that sense. It also built a franchise. So like Tron, the franchise's impact on the movie industry is definitely evident in the ability to attract audiences and influence the direction of future sci-fi films. Its legacy continues to be celebrated, talked about for its innovative storytelling and technical achievements. So, the original film, again, even though it is kind of outdated visually and has a retro feel, which we actually did see a little in Aries, which was definitely appreciated. I definitely appreciated that. So for those familiar with the first film, the original film, who saw Aries, that sequence that I'm talking about, they probably definitely appreciate that. Definitely had nostalgia, big nostalgia feel to it. So Tron, the franchise, it's had a huge impact on the industry and just the world in general. I think a lot of the ideas in the film are very relatable, very talked about. The storytelling, the concept, especially for the original film, especially at the time, was innovative, pioneering, because it's not something we really saw at all before the original film. So the ideas were definitely there. And yeah, it definitely really helped shape the industry, and with the use of CGI and the way films could look and the potential for how films could be made and how CGI could be incorporated into films going forward. So we're going to wrap up today's episode. So Tron definitely has had a big impact on the industry and just in culture in general. A lot of the concepts, ideas that, especially in the first film, that were introduced, have definitely mirrored events, especially recently, that are happening in the real world. So that connection, definitely pretty cool. If I had to rate the films, I would say Legacy is definitely overall probably my favorite film, just because of the story, again, which isn't too complex, but just the ideas of what happened in the story, I thought were the best, in my opinion, to watch. And visually, since it did take place in the grid, the look of it felt the most immersive for me. So I would say Legacy. Then, I mean, the original Tron is definitely outdated, but the concepts, it was interesting to watch. I've only actually watched it once, pretty recently on Disney Plus. But it was definitely very interesting to watch, especially not knowing how the whole thing started and getting to know that, understand all that. Then Aries, like I said, the story felt very familiar. It wasn't bad, to me at least, but it didn't offer anything new or fresh. I guess in the franchise it did, but just overall, like the story, it was too familiar. Visually, it looked great. It did take place a lot in the real world, so that aspect of the grid, just that overall immersion that we got with Legacy, wasn't there. But so it kind of hindered the experience as far as like being immersed in the Tron world. But like just watching the movie, it still looked cool. It still felt fun to watch. So I'd like to hear your thoughts. Comment on the video with your thoughts on the franchise, what you think about Tron, both Aries and just the franchise in general. And if you're not already following us on social media, we're on Instagram, X, also known formerly as Twitter, for those of you who don't know. And then also comment on our social media posts. Make sure you're following us. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And thank you for watching today's episode. We will see you next time.